Welcome to this deep dive, you guys. We're really getting into 100 Years of Solitude today. I know a lot of you have been asking us to unpack this one for a while, so get ready. It's a good one. We're talking about the Buendia family, love and loss and obsession, and maybe even a touch of magic.
It's wild how Marquez takes this one family
Yeah.
and uses them to explore these big, universal themes, love, loss, the whole shebang. It's kind of like he's taken just everyday human experiences and injected them with this dose of magic.
Totally. Right off the bat, we meet José Arcadio Buendía, the family patriarch. And he leads this whole group to found Macondo, which ends up crazy isolated. He's so driven, obsessed even with progress, always chasing new ideas. But it's like there's this recklessness to it all too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Take his thing with alchemy, right? Or his constant need to invent something. It shows how much he wants to learn, but he's also kind of ignoring practicality. And even his family sometimes, that whole contradiction, that's Jose Arcadio Buendia. And that's the legacy that gets passed down.
Yeah. And remember when he trades Ursula's gold coins, the one she's had hidden away, just for a few magnets from some random gypsies? I felt so bad for her.
Right. Ursula's the only grounded one in the whole family, always trying to hold things together.
For real.
Think about it. She ends up rebuilding their home, what, 3, 4 times? It's like a symbol, all her trying to keep them stable.
It's a lot.
And she's practical, resilient, total opposite of her husband and his impulsiveness. She's low-key one of the most interesting characters in the book.
Speaking of the gypsies, they show up and it's like, boom, everything changes. Melquiades especially, new ideas, new tech, even magic finds its way into Macondo. They're like a portal to this whole other world that Jose Arcadio Buendia never even knew existed.
And don't forget, he leaves those parchments behind. The ones covered in cryptic writing. That's a thread, both literally and symbolically, that runs through the whole story. It's like foreshadowing, hinting at this cyclical fate that's going to haunt the family for generations.
It's true. It's like they're trapped, stuck, replaying these same patterns over and over, making the same mistakes as their parents and grandparents.
Exactly. You see with the names, right? Aurelianos and Arcadios popping up every generation like echoes of their ancestors. Marquez is playing with this idea of destiny, showing how the past keeps influencing the present.
Yeah, and even with all that repetition, you see how strong the link between love and tragedy is for the Buendias. And it starts early on with Colonel Aureliano Buendia, Jose Arcadio's son.
Oh, for sure. I mean, his love for Amaranta. Talk about passionate, obsessive, doomed from the start. And when she rejects him, it sends him spiraling. That rejection is what throws him into the chaos of those civil wars, the ones between the liberals and conservatives. He becomes a huge player in all that violence.
I was going to ask about that. For people listening who might not know much about it, can you give us a little context on what was going on back then?
Yeah, so basically, back then, Colombia was stuck in all these crazy civil wars between, like you said, the liberals and the conservatives. These weren't just little disagreements. They were full-on conflicts, tons of violence, tearing communities apart. And it went on for years. Marquez uses the wars to show how much damage political ideologies can do, even if people start with good intentions. Power can mess things up.
And it's amazing how he connects those big historical conflicts to what's going on with the Buendias, their own personal struggles.
Right. It all plays together. Everything Aureliano goes through in the war, the violence, all the power he has, it hardens him, makes him even more isolated from the people he loves.
Ugh. And then there's Amaranta. So much going on there. Haunted by rejecting Aureliano. I still think about her burning her own hand after she says no to him. Why do you think she did that? What's that all about?
That is such a powerful moment in the book. That self-inflicted punishment, it says so much about her. The guilt she carries, the regret, all these emotions she just bottles up inside. It's like a physical manifestation of all that pain,
Yeah.
the scars you can't see from love that's not returned, from the choices we make. Amaranta's story, it reminds us that sometimes the worst wounds, we're the ones who inflict them on ourselves.
And then, boom, things in Macondo totally shift. The banana company shows up, and it's like hitting fast forward on their world. Like this tiny village is suddenly swept up in its own mini industrial revolution, right?
It's crazy. Marquez does this amazing job of showing how messy progress can be. The banana company brings all this money, technology, a link to the rest of the world. But then there's this other side. The exploitation, the unrest, the realization that even when things are supposed to be getting better, someone always gets left behind,
Like their little world wasn't ready for what happens when you suddenly connect to that global machine. All the inequalities that were always there, they just become impossible to ignore.
Exactly. And it's like this huge wake-up call. Marquez doesn't sugarcoat any of it. The strikes, the violence, people taking advantage of each other. It's all a reminder that capitalism without any rules, well, it comes with a cost. And usually it's the people who can least afford it who end up paying the price.
So true. And right in the middle of all this, we meet Aureliano Segundo. He's like the poster child for this new wave of good times, totally different from his uncle, the colonel.
Oh yeah, he is all about living life to the fullest. Parties, tons of kids, always up for a good time. Aureliano Segundo, with that larger-than-life personality, he represents the best and the messiest parts of the boon.
Total opposite of the colonel's whole vibe.
Right. Night and day, those two.
And of course, we can't forget Petrocotes. Their love story is the stuff of legends. Like, literally, there's magic woven into it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Their whole relationship, it's like this explosion of, like, magical realism, his livestock multiplying like crazy whenever they're together. Pure magic. Marquez uses it to show how alive everything feels during the boom. Limitless potential, good fortune everywhere you look.
But even then, you can sense things are a little, I don't know, off balance. Like, deep down, you know this much abundance can't last forever.
It's like a ticking clock, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where Fernanda, Aureliano Segundo's wife, comes in. She is, in so many ways, the polar opposite of Petrocotes and everything she represents.
Oh, tell me about it. Her grand entrance. Carried into Macondo like royalty. Talk about making a statement. It's almost comical, but it also tells you everything you need to know about her. Like, she stepped out of a history book, totally oblivious to what's really going on around her.
Nailed it. Fernanda's all about upholding those old traditions, you know? Social status, the right way to do things. She's obsessed with protecting this idea she has of the Buendía family honor, even if it's completely out of touch with reality. Her showing up, it's like this clash between the excitement of the new world and the weight of the past.
And no one gets caught in the crosshairs more than their daughter, Mime. Fernanda is determined to mold her into this perfect little aristocrat, but all she does is crush Mime's spirit. And it basically drives her right into the arms of Mauricio Babylonia, which Fernanda is not okay with.
And that's where the novel takes this really dark turn. Fernanda tries so hard to control Mime, to keep her away from anything she doesn't like, and it completely blows up in her face.
Her hiring assassins to get rid of Mauricio Babylonia, so messed up.
Yeah, talk about extreme parenting.
And it backfires so badly. Mauricio ends up paralyzed, and Mime shipped off to a convent. It's awful.
It's heartbreaking, honestly. And it shows how dangerous it can be to cling to rigid beliefs and try to control everything. Mime's story, silenced and forgotten, it's a turning point for the whole novel, like a shadow falling over Macondo. It's like the Buendías start spiraling even further into this lonely, hopeless place.
And as if to emphasize that downward spiral, the rain starts. And it just doesn't stop, like 5 years of nonstop rain.
Talk about symbolism. The rain is like this cleansing. It washes away the craziness of the boom years, but it also warns you about the rot that's setting in.
Yeah.
For Macondo and for the Buendías, almost like nature itself is reflecting the sadness and turmoil that's eating away at the family from the inside.
Yeah, it's a rough time. But then, just when everything feels bleak, we meet Amaranta Ursula, the last of the Buendías. She's like a burst of color in this sea of gray, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Amaranta Ursula is like this breath of fresh air. She's got this energy, this love for life that almost feels defiant. Like she's staring down all the sadness and saying, nope, not today.
She's definitely a bright spot in all the darkness. It's like she's trying to rebuild Macondo's spirit from the ground up, even when everything around her seems determined to fall apart.
Yeah, it's almost like she's refusing to accept that things can't get better. And then there's her marriage to Gaston, the Belgian engineer. That feels hopeful too, right? It's like a new beginning.
It does.
He brings this whole global perspective, this belief in progress. Kind of reminds you of the banana company showing up, but this time it feels different. Less that exploity.
Totally. Amaranta Ursula is the one calling the shots this time. She gets to decide how Macondo connects with the outside world. It's not forced on them like it was before.
Right. She's not just repeating the past, she's making her own choices.
Yeah.
But then there's Aureliano, right? Her nephew, hunkered down with those mysterious parchments, trying to unlock the secrets Milkiades left behind. It's like two sides of the same coin, you know, all this hope for the future, but then this looming feeling like their fate is already decided.
It's almost like reading a spoiler for your own life. Like, hey, here's how it all ends. Talk about intense.
It is. And as he deciphers those parchments, Aureliano's not just learning about his family's past. He's confirming their destiny, the one they can't escape. And what a destiny, right? The parchments lay it all out. Macondo, this town that's seen so much life, it's all going to vanish, wiped out by a huge storm. The Buendía family legacy, gone. Just like that.
We talked about history repeating itself, but it takes it to another level. Like, no matter what they do, they're stuck on this predetermined path.
It's brutal, and it's in the middle of all that doom and gloom that Aureliano and Amaranta Ursula fall in love. This desperate, passionate attempt to find something real, to build a new start, even though everything seems pointless.
Knowing the ending makes it even more tragic.
It does. And of course, their love, powerful as it is, it can't outrun fate. Their child, little Aureliano, he's born with a pig's tail, just like Melchides predicted generations earlier.
My heart breaks for them. It's like they never stood a chance.
It's like a symbol. Like no matter how hard you try, you can't outrun who you are, where you come from, the sins of their ancestors. They can't escape them. Our Aunt Ursula dies in childbirth, and, well, that's it for the Buendias, isn't it?
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You know what's coming, but you can't look away.
The cycle completes itself. Aureliano's left there with his son, and then, boom, the whirlwind hits. Macondo is wiped off the map, just like the prophecy said. It's over.
Marquez doesn't hold back on that ending. So bleak.
But it makes you think, doesn't it? About fate, about whether we really have free will. Like, can we escape the paths that are laid out for us? Or are we all just playing out our parts in the story that's already been written?
Right. The Buendia family, they're like a reflection of all of us. All our flaws, our passions. It's a reminder that even when we know how things end, even when it seems like there's no point, life is still worth living. We still crave connection, love, something to hold on to.
That's the beauty of 100 Years of Solitude, I think. It forces us to confront these huge existential questions. It doesn't give you easy answers. It just leaves you thinking.
100 Years of Solitude definitely lives up to its name.
Definitely does.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks for coming along on this wild ride with us. We'll catch you next time, same place. Until then, happy reading, everyone.